And you and Ryan, you guys went to Albany, I believe, right? And sort of sought viewer feedback. What did you hear and what sort of inspired the decision?
That was Peter's idea.
Well, the idea of it is to, we're always accused in Hollywood of being in a bubble. And that we're just telling stories about our lives. And I had an experience last year when the show first came out at one of the screenings, and a man came up in a wheelchair afterwards. And he said, please tell my stories. Don't just tell your stories, tell my stories. And I realized I didn't really know what he meant. And so we've been in the writer's room as well. We've been exploring what that means, trying to figure it out. And this idea came along to maybe go out to the places that we usually don't go to, like Albany or frankly West Virginia or Tennessee or anywhere where we don't normally go, and just ask them, like, what stories aren't we telling? What are we getting wrong? Tell us, please. And we had our first experiment with it up in Albany, and it's fantastic. Ryan and I went up and showed an episode, and it just the fact that we were even there asking the question just cracked people open, and these stories that would come out. Initially the questions were all about, what's it like to now be a doctor as opposed to the guy on Blacklist.
Yeah.
I feel that we are born with inherent goodness. We believe in goodness, and the kind of love, the kind of world that we live in, that goodness is getting jaded because of the environment, because of the place. This show revives your faith in goodness. It revives your faith in hope. It revives your faith in togetherness. And that's why people don't even only recognize actors playing doctors, they also recognize us as representative ambassadors of hope, of happiness. So they don't only shake hands or sort of take selfies, they also want to hug you. And I have hugged so many people on the streets. And I get withdrawal symptoms if I'm not recognized for 5 minutes. So if somebody is looking at me and I almost do, if somebody is looking at me, I say, yeah, it's me only, come on. I think it has a great energy. The show has an amazing energy, and I think hats off to writers, and somehow they have collected good people.
Yeah.
I think goodness attracts goodness.
Yeah.
People, they attract good people. We are actually family.
Yeah.
Means I'm miles and miles, thousand miles away from my hometown, and to be with these people, I think we recognize the goodness in them. I think that's beautiful. I think everybody has. Yeah. Actors try to take themselves very seriously. It's just a job. Yeah. A carpenter's job is as complicated as an actor's job is. Just because we get written about, we get talked about, we start saying what was actually happening in my mind. I was actually feeling my head, and I was getting into the emotion. Shut up! It's your job, and do it well. I agree.
On that note, Ryan,
I retract everything I just said. That was nonsense. I don't know what I was thinking.
Do you want to talk about your emotions now, Ryan?
No, I just did my job. I just did it. I go to work and I do my job and that's it. No, you're absolutely right. I was tempted to say the finale because it was so hard for Janet and I, and Peter was directing that, to stay in that place of high stakes and your wife bleeding out possibly to death. And I was reminded of another episode, which I think was 5 from season 1, Erica Green's episode about the gun violence.
With the bullet?
With the,
yeah.
Yeah, with the kids.
Favorite episode.
Yeah.
Getting shot. And it's tough. David and everyone do such a great job of bringing in such real pertinent issues. And so gun violence, particularly as it relates to children, particularly as it relates to race and things, was difficult to deal with and upsetting. So, yeah, when you try to wrap your head around that stuff, it's hard. But that was a great episode. It was a privilege to work on that one. Yeah.
I think for me, episode 13 last season was such a melting pot of, when I read it, you find similarities in your own life, and actually it's much easier to emotionally access So on one hand, you're like, this sings through me. I know this. I know where this is and where this lives in me, this moment. But it also makes it harder because you are accessing those places, you know? So I think I felt I was pregnant at the time, so I felt very protective of the life that I was growing inside me whilst also accessing very dark, very upsetting places. Yeah, I guess that was probably the hardest for me.
Can I say what I always like to say too? This is pretty amazing. Yes, she was pregnant, shooting very difficult emotional content, and in between takes, she was going and throwing up in the bathroom because she was sick from being pregnant. And then just coming back in, not saying anything about it to anybody, but I could tell.
I stunk of vomit.
Stunk of puke. We're shooting scenes a couple feet away from each other. I can smell the puke. I mean, come on. But seriously, just coming back and not saying a word, I'm gonna be like, geez, man, do you want to take a minute? Like,
You know, I'm punching myself in the face. No, let's go!
And she would just be like, no, I'm ready. And we roll into it, and she would just clobber it every time. And I just thought, oh my God, that is strength right there.
We kind of talked about this, but how far in advance do you tape each episode, and how long does it take to complete each episode?
Depends how good it
What'd you
is.
say? 4? We're filming 8, episode 8,
Yeah.
so we're about 4 ahead right now. It
Well,
takes
not,
about,
yeah, that's right.
it took about 8 days,
Shoot 8 days. Yeah.
8 days.
and then you said, what'd you say?
No,
About
I
Peter?
mean, we're technically only 3 because we just started 8 and we just.
Oh, that's
4.
right.
Yeah.
And we're breaking 14 in the room tomorrow.
Episode 14.
The way I describe it is like
But
laying
do you
train
know
track.
the story till episode 22?
I know the final scene of 22.
What is the story of
That's all.
Let's have it.
Tell us.
Okay.
So George is not really dead, right?
Max has been dead this whole time. It's an amazing reveal.
And M. Night Shyamalan comes walking up.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, another one. Ryan, how was the transition from playing an assassin on the blacklist to playing a doctor on Amsterdam?
This is Peter's favorite question. He asked me
So
this on a
excited to hear
daily
this
basis.
answer again.
Yeah. Yeah, what can I say that I haven't said on that? I mean, here's what I'll say. What I love about this show is that it's talking about real people, real issues. I mean, we're these characters aren't real, but my character is based on Eric Mannheimer, who's a real guy who ran Bellevue, and these issues about going across the border to get insulin for someone who needs it because prices are 10 times. Shout out to Tyler,
Shout out to
being
Canada.
Canadian. Because prices are 10 times more expensive here than they are in Canada. It's exciting to play a character that is dealing in real life and issues that I think are significant and important. As fun as it is to do guns and car chases and fight sequences and stuff, which is such a good time, this stuff is, for me, is really interesting.